A very good morning to you all, and I wish to hear your replies with good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Right. So we are going to officially begin the sixth session where we wish to typically discuss, most of the strategies for you to improve your writing with language engineering as well as prompt engineering are almost discussed up to now. Today, we are going to put some of these things in practice with your trusted AI partner and you as a central agency, simply being the pilot with your AI assistance. We are going to navigate a bit of this STEM writing in AI assisted era. This could be a quite challenging task, but we don't need to be late in applying these technologies in your research writing because they are almost everywhere under their use. So if we are going to simply forget them and still try to navigate through the manual methods, we'll be a little late. And I don't like University of Morato researchers to be a little late in that regard. That's why we thought of getting this prompt engineering aspect as a central element of our research communication module because it can provide 24/7 assistance to you. And what we have to do is we are to create your agency as to how you can actually exploit the potentials of generative AI to get your work done. So we'll be treating you and we'll be trying some experiments in the classroom. And of course, today, based on today's session, I'll be setting a research-oriented, authentic task for you all to try and upload. And with that, we are going to sort of do partly a research and sort of do partly an experiment with you all as to how we can use this particular platform, AI-assisted writing, prompting in STEM research. I think that introduction is quite sufficient for us to have an idea what we're going to do today, right? So it's simply a navigation of the intersection of AI and academic integrity. Academic integrity means one who writes the academic article is a real author who does research, who reports authentic findings. That is academic integrity. And he or she refers to authentic literature and latest up-to-date research, and he synthesizes his own write-up with the help of that body of knowledge, putting his own finding in it. So that is academic integrity. Typically, in academic integrity, it serves as a sort of a tenet, an ethic for any researcher to navigate the scientific field of exploration of the scientific field, as well as to contribute to the scientific publishing field. Friends, is this typical these days, these disconnections of your connectivity? Now, I am using Mobitel. Mobitel seem to be quite disrupting our connectivity. Is it the case of your end as well? I'm just asking.
Yes. Yeah, I am using the Mobitel one. However, there are many interruptions. That's you are correct.
Yeah,
Very
indeed.
difficult to handle it.
Yes, indeed. When I'm delivering lectures for the last couple of days, I found nearly 3 to 5 times interruptions in the meet. My God.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So, pardon me, those are technical difficulties, but still let us try to survive through all these. Maybe they are all once again testing our resilience. We'll try to respond to these resilience tests and let us try to survive. Okay, friends. So I was talking about the academic integrity aspect, which means, we put ourselves, our identity, our knowledge in the bigger knowledge industry in an authentic way where we do that business with ethics, respecting to the knowledge of others while respectfully positioning our knowledge in the field of knowledge industry. So that is academic integrity. And as I told you, artificial intelligence is in a way helping most of the academicians, particularly the researchers, to get things done easy, right? So in such an era, we thought of, this is groundbreaking thinking, let me say, because in Sri Lanka, from a global south perspective, trying to get AI is still in a sort of a contradicting, what we call, sort of a resisting mentality in our academia. So they are to simply say no to AI, but I believe when we say no to AI, it's just a futile attempt because students are going to use it in such a way, maybe vulnerable. And that's why I thought of getting AI into the dialogue openly and teaching you the most ethical and academically sound ways of getting the use of AI. I think you will not be upset for thinking this way because this is the vibe of the day. We can't resist the existing tide. We have to survive through that tide. I wish I wish that you all are with me in this exploration because as you reflect on yourself, you are currently using AI. Am I right? And your use of AI should be ethically acceptable and authentically sustaining your authorship rather than simply delegating your work to AI. I think you guys would agree with me. If you can simply drop a thumbs up or thumbs down, indicating whether you agree or disagree with me, that will be a great response for me to go ahead. So today we are going to set a couple of objectives. So we are going to understand the difference between human and machine generated text, particularly when you are using a machine. If you know the machine's architecture, machine's underlying principle, then you know how to use it properly. I'm not an expert in generative AI, but I'm somebody who's going to use generative AI for writing purposes. And I'm going to teach future researchers how to use that in their STEM communication. So that foundation will be laid to understand the mechanics of natural language processing and generative AI, and how could that be aligned with your agenda of writing a research. Secondly, we'll be looking at engineering, which is simply prompt engineering, which means, how can you manipulate a widely capable generative AI to get your work done, because generative AI is made for a particular purpose, which owners have trained the large language model to. But you are making use of its potential in this prompt engineering exercise. You are making use of the AI's potential to get your work done. So you are going to train your generative AI, whatever the option you are going to choose, you are going to change and train your AI to get your work done, so that we are going to harness the power of the AI for our purpose. And finally, we'll be looking at the ethical risks, biases, and hallucinations, and how to strictly maintain academic integrity. We'll be trying this through very rigorous and very authentic, simple activities in the classroom. And this will, keep in mind, my dear friends, this will lead to an experimental use of these techniques that we discussed today in a real, authentic research context. How can you get the support of generative AI to re-synthesize something which is made to your authorship, which is made to your agency, and which is made to your identity alone? So we'll try it. Those are the learning objectives set for the day. And we are moving directly to part 1, foundations of LLMs. Those who are coming from computer science engineering and those who are familiar with LLMs and generative AI, they can actually contribute to this discussion, because I'm not an expert in this particular field, but I'm an exploiter of generative AIs. So what I'm teaching you is quite simply how to exploit it for our purpose. Can I see in chat how many of you are there coming from computer science engineering field, so that I can simply direct some of those questions to you, which will nurture our discussion today. In chat, respond me who are coming from computer science engineering or computer science or data sciences or AI or whatever. And if you're using AI, I don't need to question. It's not a question. Actually, it's a fact these days. Everyone is going to use it, because this groundbreaking facility should not be underutilized. I'm waiting for those who are in the class to send me who are coming from computer science engineering, data sciences, AI, or information technology. Hello, friends. Does it mean that no one is there or no one wants to tell that they are from there? හරි හරි මංගොල්ලන්ව අමාරුවේ දාන්න නෙමෙයි හදන්නේ. I'm not trying to put you in a trap. Just tell me, just to get certain things clarified, because when I know little, when there is someone who knows another little, we can make the two littles together and make it a little big. That's the idea behind this. Friends, anyone there who are from AI, computer science engineering, data sciences, or information technology fields? Just say yes in chat, that's enough. Thank you. Some of you are responding. Dharani, great to hear that you are there. Subhashini says no, okay, no worries. Is it only Dharani who is coming from CSC or AI or data sciences? Dharani must be knowing the other fellows, but they are not actually volunteering in this discussion. It's okay. Thank you very much. I have a refuge now, Dharani. And Dharani, help me whenever I mess perhaps certain things. If I'm going to mess, please correct me, because this is not all about preaching. We are going to learn from each other. And when we learn from each other, as I told you early, I know some little, and some of you do know some little further. And when these little things put together, it is going to be a little big, right? So that's the idea. Yes. Okay, Dharani, you are not from data science, but you are from CSC. Okay. Thank you. Great. Let's go ahead. Foundations of LLMs. Okay. In a simple chat response, all of you, please send me in a single sentence or a phrase, what do you think these large language models are doing? Do not now Google. Do not now ask the ChatGPT or whatever generative AI to answer this question. Just out of your own gut feeling, tell me what large language models are doing, what they are made for. Just respond me in chat. You don't need to be an expert in this field, but you must be knowing what they are made to, or rather, for what you are using it for. Please respond me quickly. Thank you, Nilupul. You started the dialogue. Yes. I want others to respond me. What do you think is LLMs are made for? What they are capable of doing? Hello, this is hilarious. I'm asking this program, this question from actually the leading STEM researchers in Sri Lanka. Okay, Binura, predict tokens, okay. Perfect. When you are actually adding your responses, ensure that you add it to be seen by everyone. So your chat should go for everyone so that everyone can read your little inputs little by little so that they come to know what it is. Thank you, Vinura, for your uh, wonderful explanation because you bring what Nilupul said in a more convincing way, more what we call more nuanced way. Aslam, thank you. Well, that's also an interpretation of AI. Okay, thank you, Aslam. Friends, everyone, please send me. My question is, I wish clear. What is it? Why and what large language models are? Or rather, you can simply answer the question, what you are doing with LLM? Or rather, what LLM is capable of doing? Come on, friends. Minura, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Great. Now, I'm inviting all of you once again, when you write your chat, address it to everyone, not for me alone. Thank you, Tilina. Well, okay. That's also a way of looking at generative AI. Okay, great. I want to read what you have got to write there, please. I'm waiting for my friends' responses. My question is sent for you all to simply understand what my question is. Subhashini? Okay, you don't need to be familiar with it, Subhashini, but you must be at least knowing what you do with generative AI, what you do with ChatGPT, what you do with Gemini, and so on. That's simply the answer I want you to post here. What LLMs are doing? That's my question. Kusal says a wonderful statement. Yes, LLMs are making our life easier. I don't know, maybe it's making our life difficult, perhaps, right? If it is making your life easier, I'm I'm happy and I'm glad. Banuka, thank you. Yes, you put it in very simple terms. Others, please respond. I'm waiting for your answers. Thank you, Dharani. Perfect. Bit technical, but it's convincing. Friends, tell me what LLMs are doing. What LLMs are doing for you? LLMs are simply the generative AIs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Notebook, and all that. Well, Subhashini says LLMs as a writing tool. Let me laugh for it because it's not a writing tool. Yes, it's a writing tool, true. Writing assistance, I would love. Well, Mahesh, it's amazing, yes. So you can interpret one thing in a particular way, and the LLM can interpret it in multiple ways. Yeah, it's about getting more interpretations for languages. Yeah, thank you. Others praise respond what LLMs are doing. Well, you would see that this is partly a bit of an experiment, as I told you. But this experiment is not, in which experiment you are not going to be a guinea pig. You are going to be just uh, an active researcher in the exploration itself, right? So I'm not going to put you in a sort of an experiment as guinea pigs, and I'm not going to try something out of experimenting on you, right? Thank you, Minami. Well, that's very descriptive. Thank you. Now you would see that what I'm getting as answers are simply capable of giving me a notion about you all, how well and how great you are aware of LLMs. Thank you, Sachini. Yes. Metsuri, thank you. Right. I think it's the case of half of you in the class happen to respond me. I would love if others can also respond, but in the meantime, I'll be moving on the discussion. While you're responding, I'll be moving on. So, what is human-centered writing and what is machine-generated writing? Just look at the contrast. Now, human-centered writing is driven by brainstorming and personal worldview. Now, what is brainstorming? Brainstorming is quite simply you question from yourself on a particular topic what you know. And then, based on definitions and what others have defined it on the very favor of you or maybe against you, how others happen to mess the whole definition, you will look at a particular subject or subject matter in the form of a brainstorming, which means you see how A, B, C, D, and E scholars happen to look at a particular thing, right? And by looking at these different views given by the others, you are going to have a personal worldview, which means nourished, fortified, or supplemented by the others' interpretation of the same subject matter. You are going to develop a very personal worldview about a topic. That's how human writing, when something happens human-centeredly, that's how it happens. And this human-centered writing models actually relies on interactive revision and experience. Now, interactive revision in the sense, you first understand something and you read a particular text and the definition and maybe someone who interpreted it, and you revise your own simple understanding to a next level of understanding, and you put that into a new level of experience. So human-centered writing models are like that. It's evolving from somewhere, perhaps from nowhere to somewhere to everywhere. I don't know how long it moves on. And this human writing models, actually, they're deeply rooted in rhetorical awareness and belief systems. What is rhetorical awareness? Rhetorical awareness is how certain people give emphasis on certain facts. So when you hear for a lecture, when you listen to a lecture, when you read a text, and when you watch even a movie on a particular topic, you know that people give emphasis on certain things. People disregard on certain matters, and people give examples on certain, and on others they don't give, which means this very way of emphasis and negligence and highlighting that human add on the particular topic is known to human right. And of course, human writing is nurtured, or rather is rooted in belief systems. Belief systems in the sense, when we talk about, say, for example, when we are talking about child abuses these days in what you call educational reforms, this child abuse topic is going to be so fascinating, you see. And you see, we are going to teach children how not to be abused. We are simply giving them the literacy of being protected. So we are trying to give our children in what forms the abuses might come, so that you can protect yourself by knowing it. But the entire world, our belief system, is something else. They think that teaching how abusers do may abuse them. That's how they think. It's about teaching how to abuse children. That's how they think. But what we're actually trying to do is how abuses come in different ways, and how you can detect it, and how you can prevent and respond to it without being a prey of that. What I took this example is, our writing is totally based on human belief systems. And remember, it's a social and contextual process. Social in the sense, we write it to a particular audience, and when we write something, we know whom we are addressing. Now, here I'm addressing to a postgraduate research students, or rather researchers, so that I know that they are an intelligent crowd and they have a particular age range, they have a particular knowledge level. So knowing that, I develop my writing, or rather I develop my speaking. So this is how human-centered writing models function. Well, let's look at how machine-generated, or rather machine writing models work. Actually, they are driven completely by probabilistic pattern. They recognize the data inserted, and they look at the probabilistic patterns, and from that they determine what comes next. And remember, unlike human, the generative AI or LLMs, they do not have a worldview or personal experience. They do not take any of these data fed to them as a personal experience. They do not actually evolve, or rather build up a knowledge on that particular topic as a personal experience. It's going to be just another service that it delivers, and once the service is delivered, that's all, and it does not make any personal experience to machine generated writing models. And they are very excels at reducing genre conventions, reproducing. Genre conventions means how certain things are stylistically organized. Say, for example, if you take a research paper, it has IMRAD structure. So it's a genre convention. These machine generated writing models are very much capable of simply reproducing these conventions, these styles, these templates, these genre conventions. So that's a positive point in machine writing models. And finally, they actually generate text by predicting the next likely token. Now, you must be knowing what token could be. Token is simply how whatever the data we feed to LLM is understood, comprehended, or processed by the language model. It takes it as a token and it looks for similar tokens, the token occurring patterns, and so on. There are a lot of algorithmic predefined ways of looking at it, and there is a lot of probability testing happens, and with that they predict what is the next token could be. So you see, human-centered learning is an evolving process where there is an agency, and of course it is bound with a worldview and socially and contextually bound. But machine writing is nil, or rather it is devoid of any of those worldview, personal experience, belief systems, social and contextual aspects, but it's very much capable of reproducing patterns. From existing pattern, it produces the next pattern, and this is done by way of a token reading approach. So it's clear that this is what are the differences. These are what the differences between your writing and when you're writing with generative AI model. So this is a simple effort from my end to simply give you an idea what and how LLMs work. I'm reading from the script. You don't need to look at the picture on the right-hand side, but just read. LLMs are essentially pattern recognition machines that leverage vast neural networks. These neural networks are simply the data networks where the whole LLM is connected to. They do not think, just look at. That's very important. They do not think. Instead, they excel at predicting the next likely word in a sequence based on statistical probabilities derived from massive training data sets. So it's trained with data, and the training data tells its probability of certain tokens appearing, reappearing, lining up. It understands the syntax. And then the goal is to augment human skills through skillful steering. Now remember, the very objective of LLM is to augment human skill. You know what is augmenting? Humans do have their own skill. And if he's going to make a mistake, if he is lacking some expertise in a particular aspect, then LLM is going to assist you, but it does not replace critical thinking. Critical thinking is an aspect held by you. Is somebody trying to speak with me, or rather speak to the class? I'm sorry if I missed your voice. Please go ahead. If not, I might. Go ahead. Maybe a technical, yeah, maybe a technical. Technically, one of you might have switched on the microphone, and yeah, okay, yeah. So you understood what is the very nature of LLMs working. Natural language processing is actually all about, it's actually all about the architecture behind all this. It's quite simply translating language to code. Now, code is the language of machines, and human language is our language. And what natural language processing is all about, converting human language into understandable code, which is the mode of communication in machines. NLP is the process of translating human language into code that machines can analyze and manipulate. So there are two steps happening. The first thing is tokenization, which means any data that we provide to the system, they actually attribute numerical values to each of the text, or rather each of the punctuation. Each of the text we provide, it assigns numerical values. And then what happens is the second step, embedding. It determines meaning through association and context. Now, certain numerical patterns are given to it because the computer is working on numbers, right? So they determine the meaning through association and context. So they look at how certain tokens appear in certain text, how it is lined up, when it reoccurs, following what and preceding what. By looking at it, determines meaning. Oh my God, yeah, this goes with the other, and yes, that's how it works, embedding. And you need to understand what this tokenization, because you are going to use it for your writing assistant. So remember, your words are understood by large language models as numbers. Now look at this particular example on the right-hand side. So we give it a text, the cow jumped, exclamation mark. So it identifies the whole thing is splitted into tokens, and then each token is attributed with a numerical value. You see? Now it's no longer a word, it's a numerical value once you fed it to the system, right? They are not always, remember, they are not regarding them always as full words. Now, how we process, when we hear a word, we know it has a meaning and it has a context, and based on the context in which it is used by the writer or the reader, we know, yes, this means that, right? So this is done in machines by using the assigned numbers, the numerical values, and their sequencing and their patterns determine, on probabilistic theories, it determines what comes next. So it is simply about producing the next one in a sequence. I'm sure that you can remember during a grade 5 scholarship examination, or later when you sit for any aptitude test, you see that there is, predicting the next in sequence, which we were doing. Can you remember? And that's the simple principle that this tokenization happens. It attributes a numerical value and simply predict what comes next. And it simply looks meaning through association, which means what? Now, when a token is assigned, what happens? It looks, embedding assigns probabilities to where words belong based on their context. Now, it looks in the whole system how this particular token is associated, or rather surrounded by other tokens in the system fed, so in the system on the data which is fed so far. So an unknown word gains meaning when placed near known concepts. So this is what happens. The system has known concepts, and system gets the unknown text, and it tries to put the unknown text in known contexts and concepts, and it tries to attribute meaning. Now look at the example, Ong Chow. Now the first thing is, when you enter Ong Chow, it's going to be a token, and it searches through its data set and then see the other probabilistic associations. Now here, Ong Chow is delicious, sauteed with garlic. Now you see, these associations tell it a particular idea about what is Ong Chow. And it goes further. Ong Chow is superb over rice. Now, by looking at all those associations, your system predicts its model. So the model infers Ong Chow is a vegetable similar to spinach, greens, based on garlic, salted, and rice. Now you see, in this particular context, the model infer Ong Chow is something related or similar to vegetable. But when it associates other patterns, it comes to know what Ong Choi is. This is how a large language model infers meanings from the non-data set, non-training data, attributing a token to an unknown word, right? So we'll be trying this out in an example soon, and there you will understand the whole scenario. Well, now what we can do is actually we can train the Lego analogy. We can train these building blocks. I'm taking a Lego analogy. Now, when you have different sets of logos, I'm sure you did not play with logos, but I'm sure your children are playing with Legos. Now, when you get Lego set A, Lego set B, and C, it's when it is purchased that to which particular Lego set this belongs. But once it's given to your child, what happens is, he's going to put all the Legos which are disconnected, which are not used to model building, in one cubicle or in one place, so that it is messed up, right? So this happens in large language models as well. Massive box mixed with Lego bricks. This represents the raw input text. Tweets, poems, scientific articles, and books. Now, when you insert a raw data, remember that large language model is actually surrounded by lots of data. They are coming from texts, they are coming from tweets, they are coming from poems, they are coming from scientific articles, and some of them are coming from books, some of them are coming from screenplays. So all these data are surrounded in the large language model, and you enter a simple text and it tries to infer into all those areas. Now what happens? See, if you are going to make use of large language model, before you feed your LLM with any data that you want to process, you have to clean the existing inference system, or rather existing training data. How can you do? Before building the Lego, as we see, we sort out what parts we really require for that particular construction. We apply the same thing. So we remove unnecessary dirt first and then go on developing the thing. So we'll see how we do it. The first thing is removing unnecessary inferences in the large language model. I will explain it in an example in a future scenario, or let me do it right now. Now imagine that you are asking a definition on a particular subject. Say, for example, you are going to ask a definition on genetic engineering. Okay. Now, when genetic engineering is simply fed to generative AI, what happens is it's gonna connect that token with other tokens already available in the large language model. We have to stop this because you are using genetic engineering for a different purpose. So at the very beginning, we advise large language model. Now what you're going to do, your prompt would be something like this. I'm going to devise a sound definition for my research on genetic engineering, for which I'm going to rely on only the authentic scientific definitions given by researchers during 2022 to 2025 on genetic engineering, particularly in highly cited peer-reviewed journals. Now what you do there? You are inviting your language model to look only at the filtered data set that you want your definition be formed. Are you getting me? If not, what is happening is the language model is going to get all definitions it can infer in its data set, maybe from nowhere, from everywhere. It might mess the definitional idea. Did you guys get what is this cleaning process? If you have gotten the idea, kindly give me a thumbs up so that I can move on to the next. I see only 2, 6. Okay, great, great. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. So before you proceed to get the support of the large language model or generative AI, make sure that you define at the very onset what you expect LLM to do. When you frame its role, it won't be referring the particular word with its other probabilistic inferences. So it will be limiting itself to infer the meaning of the word that you are giving from the very nature of articles or other text that you wish it to be generated from, right? So cleaning is the first part of the whole input. And the second thing, then training the Lego. Now, when you take the Lego, we sort them based on color and maybe the shape and all that. The same way, we sort the bricks into bricks. Here is sentences and words, subwords. We actually split them into train the large language model. So how can you do that? Now, as we set the limits earlier on which particular data sources should the LLM use inferences, now we are going to say, my field of research is medical genetic engineering, which is totally different from genetic engineering for food and livestock industry, which is totally different from biodiversity studies, which is totally different from that and sort of things. Now you tell your large language model how you should distinguish the particular field from the affiliated fields within the field you specified earlier. We told earlier that we are going to define genetic engineering in a medical context. And we invited it to take only the peer-reviewed academic journal articles published between 2023 to 2025 on that definition. So it does. Now we say, what? Out of the inferencing data you have, remember that some are coming from genetic engineering for food sciences and livestock industry, some are coming from biodiversity studies, and some are coming from medical. You see? And you distinguish the LLM, well, you have to stick yourself, you have to get the data from this alone. I wish you are getting what I'm telling. Yes. So that is sorting, and now begins the steering. Steering in the sense, now there are ways that we can steer the set data to get our work done. The first thing is RLHF, which means reinforcement learning from human feedback. Now remember, in large language models, actually the language model verifies most of the meaning inferences by questioning you. Now, if you simply type a prompt asking something to be done by the large language model, you see that it prompts or it asks questions from you as well, expecting you to behave like a human. So when you provide feedback on what it performs, that is reinforcement learning from human feedback. The system learns from you what you want, what you are expecting. Humans actually, you rate the outputs. You see, you prefer one choice over the other when it is provided with 2 options. And if you are not satisfied with any, you can retype the prompt engineering and refine the whole thing, right? Human rate outputs to improve accurate and ethical alignment. Now, ethical and accuracy is a decision that you should take. AI generates texts and you read it, you approve what is ethical and aligned, what is accurate, and you disapprove what is not. This is how you steer the generative AI to get your work done. This actually teaches the model which responses are preferred by you, which responses are required by you. And look at the second aspect, constitutional AI. What's it? It is principal training. Say, for example, a particular database is trained to identify security threats. So that it's a security analytical generative AI, where text is trained for a particular purpose, right? Now, constitutional AI is simply you train a particular model to function for a specific function. Are you getting me? So you can use that knowledge for your work as well. You can constitute your learning model to do whatever you want to do. Now you see, generative AI, when you know how it functions, it's easy for you to get it done. Say, for example, if you know the particular dog breed, where they are mischievous at, where they are intelligent at, where they are actually greed at, when you know which breed is greed at hunting, you will find a hunter-friendly beagle-like variety to ensure your preference. And if you know that beagles are not so much obeying, I'm just referring to a dog example, kennel example. Yeah, if you know that beagles are not so tameable, or rather not so trainable, you admit to the fact that they could be trained not to get your work done, but to get perhaps a hunting done, right? So when you know what language model does what, and when you know what language models can do, actually what you can do is you can train your own language model to get your work done, either through reinforcement of learning from human feedback. This is a cyclic process. You can reinforce it often by providing feedback, and at the other way, you can constitute the AI to get your work done in a way that you like. So this is like you are training your partner to behave in a way that suits your requirement. Can I stop for a while and ask from you whether you have got any questions on things up to now? And Dharani, if there were any mistakes I happen to make on the stuff that I referred so far, please correct it. Because we are then moving on to practical activity. Thank you, Dharani. We are going to try a tokenization challenge. Now we have to get your what? Whatever the preferred generative AI in a newly opened tab. Maybe Gemini, maybe ChatGPT, maybe Consensus, or whatever you like. Friends, have you guys got any questions to ask from me? Or are there any points to clarify further? You must be tired of listening to this horrible voice so far. Nearly 1 hour. Just give me a greet at least that you are okay with listening to me. Hello, friends. Can I hear from one of you? whether you are sleeping or whether you are working or whether it's just, the screen that's weaving everything and you are doing something else. May I know what you're doing out there? Before we go to the tokenization challenge. Okay, if you're ready for the token challenge, give me a thumbs up, then I know. Kusal added a point here. ChatGPT has deep thinking mode, agent mode. Hmm? Okay, you're going to be so fascinated by its ability. Okay, go ahead. But still, yes. ChatGPT has deep thinking mode, agent mode, how it works rather than connecting. Yeah. So quite simple now. LLMs are evolving and its technology and its architecture is evolving. So they simply imitate how humans do. But keep in mind that human creative thinking, critical thinking is not 100% imitatable by the machines or generative AIs. It can imitate, and the present state, it says, it can imitate something around 10% of human creativity. That's all. What about the rest of the 90? That's lying with you. So don't therefore think that generative AI can outsmart you, right? It can outsmart you if you are remaining not so smart. And if you are going to be smart, ChatGPT or other language models can simply smart or rather find smart your smartness, right? So it's based on how smart you are when getting its support that made the product smart. Well, let's move on to practical activity, the tokenization challenge. So what you are supposed to do? The task is this. Now we are going to take and analyze a complex scientific sentence and guess how many tokens the AI sees, right? The tool is, the ChatGPT and every language model has a tokenizer tool. If you do not know how the tokenizer tool is working there, don't worry. Still, you can chat and ask. So what you are inviting your generative AI model is to analyze a complex scientific sentence and show you how it tokenizes the whole sentence. Let's move on to the very prompt given here. Analyze this sentence. Let me share the sentence on chat so that you'll be able to simply copy it and paste in your generative AI and send me the response, right? Here I am sending it to everyone. Try it in your LLM. So you are asking your language model to output like NLP tokenizer. So you give them the sentence. The sentence is, the rapid proliferation of CRISPR-Cas9 technology has revolutionized genomic editing, yet ethical implications remains unresolved. Now look at what is the result and how this is tokenized. If any of you could simply share, let me allow you share. your screen. Yeah. Anyone who wants to share your screen can show me. I'll stop sharing here. How it is tokenized in your LLM. Now it's over to you, any of you guys, to see how this token is crafted in yours. Please, one of you share your screen and show me how in your generative AI the token is shown, or rather the data provided to you by your LLM. Bhanuka shared his, yes. Thank you, Bhanuka. You see how many tokens has it got? Can you see Crispy CAS 9? How it is taken? One language model took is as CR as one token, IS as one token, PR as one token, and hyphen as another token, CAs as another, and 9 as another token. Now remember, how complex could it be? How complex could it be for a particular generative AI model to detect the different tokens? They are taking even tokens in different lengths and different signs. So they are going to attribute. Now, if you say, you can take this for a simple example. Imagine that you want to search in your big document of 1,000 words, let me say, or rather 1,000 pages. You have written your thesis in 1,000 pages, and you have to correct how you spelled the very word foreign, 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 right? Now you want to test how foreign is spelled in your entire thesis. So you go for Control F function, find and replace. If you go for Control F function as IEN, out of the whole thing, in the very word foreign, where you often make the mistake between EI and IEG, right? EIG, IEG. That's how you make the differences, right? So if you are to search for the 3 letters alone, IEG or EIG, rather than finding Control F, if we use Control F and you type foreign, it will take as foreign as a complete token, so that it will highlight all the places where foreign is written. But you know that sometimes you misspelled it. So you identify the misspelling sequence alone, IEG or EIG, and you take it as the Control F function token. So what happens? It's not only foreign, but even in other words where IEG appears in line, in sequence, will be highlighted. So this is what I'm telling. When you feed your language model, it understands your feeding in tokens. This is where the difference comes in. When it understands things in tokens, what happens? Each language model has its own way of tokenizing and based on the way that they take tokens, your output could be varied, right? So you understood what is tokenization. And this is understood why? Because when you are going to do your writing, you have to be careful that now if you take Chris PR-CAS9, so it has to be taken as a single token, unless you will find many inferring instances in your large language model where crisp can be taken as a token, or rather ease can be taken as a token, or rather SPR might be taken as another token. CAS might be taken as another token, 9 differently. So if you divide that into different tokens, what happens is quite simply your data are going to be coming from nowhere, which has no relevance at all to what you want to do with your LLM, right? So you understood how this tokenization is going to make your life easy or difficult. Let's move. Now we are in the part 3 of how to understand the risks and how to ensure ethics embedded in your writing. Now, you know, hallucination, biases, and impact are part and parcel of AI's writing. So let's see what this hallucination. As I told you so far, in many instances, what is this hallucination? Quite simple. AI generates information that isn't real or implied in the input. In the token, you have seen that if the token is not correctly suggested to the generative AI, now take for example, in the previous case, CRISPR-Cas9. So it's a technical term. If you feed some data into your generative AI as keywords or whatever way, you have to indicate the system that you should take the token of that particular keyword as one entity, and to which it is associated should be indicated there in your prompts. That's the whole idea. If you do not do that, it goes on hallucinating. Why? It refers to even irrelevant inferences, so that its product, its output might be influenced by relevant and irrelevant both data together, so that the output cannot be highly reliable. So it doesn't detect a meaning. It doesn't know what is the implied meaning and so on, which might lead to falsehoods. And actually, don't you with all absolute confidence might believe on what your LM model generates for you, but it's doing its usual job. It's because models are built to be persuasive, not to be truthful. They simply pick the next word based on probability, not on facts. And you have seen that how once they tokenized every word and then attribute it with a value, then by looking at those values, where equal values appear, and when they check for patterns, it might be relating, correlating, and embedding even right and wrong both data in its production. It's very persuasive model where, without checking the truthfulness of facts, it simply generates, and persuade you to believe on it. So you are going to be in a trap if you are going to follow this loop. So what we are going to do? the space brick. Do you know why hallucination happens? I think it's clear now. Let's go back to the Lego analogy. Now remember, you take a brick which is space themed and you are taking it in castle build-up. Now it is in a pillar, but the very brick looks like it's taken from sky background brick. So what happens? The size and shape might match the pillar, but the color and texture does not. But what happens here in hallucination is it takes the same shape elements together, but unfortunately making irrelevant picture on you, right? So quite simple. This is how you should understand it, hallucination. So this hallucination is quite evident in any product of LM if you do not clearly ensure that your words are tokenized rightly and you check whether your token is correctly understood by the large language model. And if it is wrong, you can, with a prompt, correct it to a right token and go on. If not, you are going to get wrong outputs. Let's move on. Now, what is bias and what is censorship? Now, we have learned in RLHF models where human feedback, the machine going to learn. You know, language models are dealing with millions of people around the world, and they are attributed with their specific political and, corporate or rather disciplinary biases. And when the language model gets feedback from such people from different political and specific biases points, what happens is language model thinks it as a frequent pattern. So it might simply make biases. Say, for example, if a very big multinational company is using generative AI to promote its own propaganda of profit making, it could be biased from the attitudes of that particular institute. So, for example, if you take University of Moratuwa, and if we often have our own biases on the way that we try, most of the users who are dealing with generative AI from University of Moratuwa might be creating a particular set of patterns which the generative AI model think that it's a pattern, so that there will be an institutional bias. So, for example, now when I am using the paid version of ChatGPT for my research purposes, my language model knows that my research area falls within metacognition, academic integrity, then critical pedagogy and digital literacies. So when I do a lot of work with such data, my language model is gonna do a bit of a bias. When I ask a general simple question, the language model is going to prompt me certain responses where it takes, apparently, habitually it takes instances of simply taking metacognition at part of it, because in most of my researches, metacognition is an element. So that for my simple random query, the language model is going to add bit of metacognitive touch into it so that it's simply making biases. On the other way around, there is a second bias, that is linguistic bias. The linguistic bias, once again, they favor standard American English. You know why? Most of the large language models are trained at US grounds, right? This can actually marginalize the other distinct forms like, the British variety, the Singaporean, Canadian, or maybe any other variety around the world. So it simply has a linguistic bias. And the last but not least, look at this censorship, the filter bubble. Now, what you have to do, when you go on sanitizing output, say, for example, it provides you an output and you recreate it, or rather you fine tune it further. You clear its biases, right? And when you do that once and often, the large language model which you are working with might get it as a force of habit, or rather it might consider it as a norm. So what happens? It might go on overcorrecting, right? And you might think that it's completely legitimate, but remember that you are doing a research until you get the patent for your research, until you publish it behind your name. Remember, you should not let it be a pattern in what? In a language model for others to simply see. So be careful, look at these biases and censorships in large language models. You can make use of it, but you have to be very much careful, and you have to be very much what we call precautious when you are dealing with it. Well, look at the global impact. It is estimated that AI could consume 80 to 21% of the world's energy by 2030. Now, energy use, if you look at for what purposes energy is used around the world, for the time being, the highest is for industrial purposes. In future, they predict that, it might increase up to 1/5 of energy is used for what? AI consumption, right? But this is how it is said. But just look at how the labor is hidden behind it. All these models are often refined through the exploitation of precarious workers in the global south who are paid pennies to label toxic data. You must be knowing that, there are lots of multinational companies hiring people from global south because for just a couple of tokens, they interpret, or rather they label data which they are familiar or perhaps not really familiar. They are paid at pennies, right? But their language model is going to be improved by those labels made by people. They are simply toxic data which they label to attribute it a human nature. So you see, these are contradicting factors, right? In the global, they say it is used for generative AI cloud consume, the power use is going to be 1/5 for AI training and all that. On the other hand, they forget that human labor under it. Once again, its power. You see, why I show you these those two statistics for you to convince how hilarious this job is, right? Now, generative AI could be a very fascinating platform where we can get most of things done properly. But remember that it altogether is based on very unrealistic and very unauthentic biases. So, for example, now I happen to work on some of these, toxic data labeling apprenticeships, because it's simply during the time of COVID that I thought of, what can I do? And then, there were big companies offering us based on our profile to label data. And, a couple of data labeling counts for a couple of dollars. If you try it, maybe, maybe 200 tokens might count for a couple of dollars. You see, some of these tokens that I receive are totally coming from, let me say, some of them are coming from Australia, some of them are coming from Singapore, right? The clan, and of course, the urban and, some dialects used here and there. When I am to annotate or label some of those utterances by those business clients or other customers in way that I think it is correct, you can understand how generative AI models understand it. So I don't know what it actually means in a Singaporean context. I don't know how it actually works in an Australian context. But randomly, I'm giving it a label, and my label is also going to be contributing to understand language models, how that particular token could be understood in its form. So I just showed you how hilarious this job and how in vain, perhaps one day, for us to understand all those things that the large language models are capable of doing has its own limitations. I wish you understood what I meant, right? We are moving on to a persuasive lie, another practical activity. Just move on. Now we are going to give your language model to summarize something which is non-existing, right? This is to show you how capable they are in their own capacities to predict the patterns of text. If you're using a subscribed version, this exercise might not work. But if you're using any pre version of generative AIs, you will see how hilarious this job is. The task is that you are asking AI to summarize a non-existing academic paper, right? And the objective is how the model uses the title to invent plausible sounding but completely fake finding, right? When you read the output, you will feel like, wow, what a content it is. But you realize that it's it's not authentic. Let's move and see. This is the prompt. I'm going to share you the prompt on your chat. There you can find. You can simply copy and paste. So let me share it for you all. Use any AI which is either paid, subscribed, or unpaid, free versions. If you are using a paid version, I'm inviting you to try the same with not subscribed free version as well, so that you'll understand. So what I'm inviting the language model is to do this particular thing, right? I sent it in chat. You can ask your generative AI to do it. Please summarize the key findings of the 2022 paper titled The Impact of Solar Flare Variability on Deep Sea Bioluminescence, a longitudinal study of the Mariana Trench by J. Joy and others. Kindly share on your chat what you got. This paper actually does not exist. See how your AI model sees it, whether it's capable of detecting it. Try the prompt and send me your response. Friends, I'm sitting here, right? You must remember that it's not a recording that is being played, right? I'm keeping my video off sometimes because it makes things easy for streaming, right? And I know that, looking at me is not a pleasant scene, right? I'm not that good looking. Therefore, it's better often for you to keep my picture aside, but keep on what I'm discussing with you. Keep your attention on what I'm discussing with you. Thank you for those who are sending the responses. it seems that most of you are using subscribed version. I'm taking what is shared by Minami. I don't know whether I have correctly spelled your name, Minami. You see,
It is correct.
right. So you see, it says I couldn't find any evidence of the real scientific paper with the title, but it provides you a hypothetical summary. You see, this is hallucination, based on simply looking at the data available there. The tokens are taken and, it looks for patterns and it creates a hypothetical summary. How nice. So this is actually the danger of what? Relying highly on this data that you take from generative AI. So be careful and we'll see how we can harness these terrible mistakes. So now it comes how to do this thing very effectively. How can you steer the GPS in your navigation of the journey? You are going to navigate your path with generative AI, but we are going to be the steering agent, and it's going to be simply the engine which takes you forth, but you are the one who steers. For what? We are using prompt engineering. And let's see what prompting basics are. So in this GPS analogy, what I'm telling is the prompt is the instruction that steers the AI GPS. Now, AI runs its journey on your instruction. If you don't input a destination, you won't go anywhere useful. So you can go somewhere, but it's not somewhere useful. Simple inputs like, write an essay, it gives a shallow, generic, off-target result. But if you simply say write about proteins, it will give a plethora of information about proteins, but how a good prompt could be like. You see, it gives the limit. Write a 20-word abstract or the folding mechanisms of protein X for an undergraduate biology audience. Now you see, you set the word limit. It's an abstract. You give the very genre, and it says folding mechanisms of particular protein, folding mechanisms of a particular protein. And you expect this abstract be written for undergraduate biology audience. Now what happens? Just asking the generative AI to do something, you are giving it a very well-defined task to do something that you really, really want to do with it. Right? So those are basics of prompt engineering. You have to provide it with your audience, the limit, and the context. There are lots of things. We'll look at those things in our future slides. When you start prompting, keep in mind that revealing your generative AI model, the context that you're functioning is really, really, really important, right? All these chatbots, they actually record or rather trace or save the conversation history, right? Therefore, you don't need to repeat one thing that you told once. You don't need to repeat it again. But whenever you check the product given by your language model as a result, and if you see that it didn't follow a particular instruction given by you, you can re-advise it to follow the initial instructions where I told this, but you didn't do that, right? In this way, keep in mind that most of your prompts are recorded in your chatbot, so it knows what you have earlier prompted. And based on that, go ahead. But if you need to emphasize or rather reiterate on a particular instruction, which the generative AI might be forgetting, give it again. And what are these context windows? Remember, token limits. AI can process at once. Remember, it's a short-term memory. It takes a token, and at the moment you advise it to do something, it goes and search for the inferences. So either context window is very much essential when you go ahead with prompting on a particular thing. Say, for example, you might be working on a research topic. You might be fine-tuning your methodology, right? While you're doing it, all of a sudden you get another task from your office where you have to write a proposal for something else. And if you're going to take the same window to give that context, what happens is your generative AI is going to mess that thing together with what you were doing, right? So keep in mind that a particular token, when it is processed at once, it's working in that context. And if you want to do something else, you have to go for a brand new window, or else you might stop that work and save and start a new dialogue with the generative AI. And the other thing is advanced context. Now, history is relevant. It can remain history, but every time when you are prompting, give it the right context. The third thing is advanced context. Look at it. You can use authentic URLs. You can give PDFs. You can give data files like CSVs to ground the AI's output in real research data. Now, when you allow your language model to refer to the articles that you read, the articles that you have annotated while reading, the article summaries you've taken, you can keep them as different PDFs in your drive. And you can share it with the language model when you are doing the write-up, right? Say, for example, you use 10 journal articles. You can keep the repository of 10 articles in PDF form. And you can then take your notes, like, from these articles, you have a tabulated summary of data where you took certain information from these articles, and they are referring to these data. You can keep that also as a PDF document. And also, you can take some data files. You can feed them as necessary to the system where you are working, and you can train your own generative AI to work on your own project to get it tailor-made for your purpose, rather than relying on what? The large language models on training data. I wish you got what I was telling. Remember that context matters a lot. This is all about contextualizing. So now what you're doing here, you are working with AI assistant. It can remember history. And every time you ask for it to do something, you reiterate on the context. And whenever you have something particular to refer for that, you feed the AI with your own data set. So what happens? The generative AI is doing a job tailor-made to your demand. You see? So it cannot be replicated elsewhere then. So this is how you can go on setting the context. So do not ever forget how powerful your context is, because whenever you do a powerful reiteration on your context, then only the generative AI model is becoming capable of producing what you want. That's why I always say it is a machine on which you are making the work. So, for example, a pattern making machine can make a random pattern, and it can make a very exotic pattern attributed to a particular Scientific concept may be to a particular cultural route, which is a decision by the pattern maker, the decision maker. He can prompt the pattern machine to produce the pattern which he needs. So the sole authorship comes to you. The generative AI model will simply be doing what you order it to do. So context is really, really relevant. Now, at the very beginning, when you start your work, you tell your generative AI what you are going to do. Here, look at this example prompt. Act as highly skilled research editor for a top-tier STEM journal. If you say for a top-tier STEM journal, once again, it's a clueless idea. So you say, act as a highly skilled research editor for Nature in Elsevier. You see? So that you invite your large language model to imitate the editor's professional role of Elsevier journal. So it has a context. This guy is going to write something for Elsevier Nature. You see? So this is what we call the role assignment strategy. Tell the AI who to be to instantly refine the tone and quality of the output. So your output quality will be prompted from the way that you advise your generative AI to function. So for example, when I often invite my ChatGPT to work on behalf of me, I say, act as a professional Sri Lankan proofreader writing for Springer journals. And my field is Springer Social Sciences. You see, when I advise it, the language model can authentically refer to those contexts from available data, and it can actually go into inference where some articles which, the same language model might have done with a real editor, right? So it can correlate the things and make your output a wonderful output that, that can be challenged at any point. So this role assignment strategy is one of the strategies that you can use in your prompt engineering. And then you have to specify the rhetorics. What is specifying rhetorics? It's quite simple. You have to tell on what limits, on what constraints, what context that it should be working to give you the response. So for example, say who is writing. Then tell to what kind of an audience you are writing. And tell what is the purpose of your writing. Say for example, you want the ChatGPT to produce something like this. I am an innovative humidifier manufacturer. My audience is the hot countries and seasons and the people in those areas whom would be inspired by my product. My purpose is to write a simple advertorial to a commercial, let me say, to a commercial propagandist. You see, you tell who you are and to whom you are addressing and what is your purpose. Now, this is actually the rhetorical specification. So it gives you an output which is of your specified rhetorical paradigms. So it will fall within the frame that you set for the generative AI to work on. I wish that part is clear and will be moving. Then I told you now human writing is always dealt with brainstorming, which means you refer once and often to actual authentic data and you analyze them and you synthesize things and your early understanding is evolving little by little while you're reading. So we are going to do this with the language model as well. It is coming with a blank page model at the beginning, right? And then from the blank page initiation, you can go ahead brainstorming with the language model, because this language model is actually capable of looking at other data available and give you certain things. Look at this. Now you want to start with a research, right? And you tell it different things, the key terms and the interested areas and the context and couple of things, and you start asking it to generate 20 research questions on a niche topic. And it goes on creating 20 research questions. And then when the 20 research questions are formed, then you can go again brainstorming. Now, these research topics sounds like they are all made for Western audience. Make sure that you try it for a tropical country audience. You see? So you can brainstorm with the system, which is actually a good way of getting your knowledge involved in the project. And then once you choose on a particular research question, you can simply ask, create a pros and cons matrix for different methodologies. Now you are then moving on to methodology. And now we are going to do this research on this particular thing. Now I want to choose the methodology. Now tell me the most appealing top 10 methodological strategies that I can follow. So that it's going to search authentically and give you results. And then you ask the same model to say, yes, out of the 5 different methodologies you suggested, give me a tabulated pros and cons matrices that, that compares these 5 methodologies. You see? Have you ever thought of these ways of getting AI into your research help? Tell me frankly. You can use your chat space and respond me whether you actually do this. Maybe some of you are doing it. Aslam admits that you are not doing. So Aslam, this is a good way, good venture where you can initiate your dialogue. Now you get a very minute chance of meeting with your supervisor, right? You meet your supervisor maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks or later on. But you meet your friends often. But even with friends, you have very little time. But you have a very good friend of a professor's capacity. That is your language model. Go on brainstorming with them. It can actually acknowledge you, add much more insights into your knowledge, molding your intelligent capacity from nowhere to a very strong knowledge base. So it's only Aslam who are going to respond me whether they are doing. Yeah, Manru also say haven't done it earlier. Yes, you can think of doing it right now, right? So never waste your time simply asking the generative model to simply generate you products. Just think how to get its capacity to help you brainstorm, because this brainstorming thing is a human agency, human initiated task, and for which generative AI can support a lot. Thank you, Manur and Aslam, for your inputs. I think the others seem to be very much familiar with this brainstorming idea. They must be already doing it. That's why they did not say whether they are trying it or not. Well, thank you for your responses, for those who have responded. And let's move on what we can do in what we call prompt engineering. Now, we were talking about role specification and then context clearance, and now the potential of generative AI as a brainstorming machine, right? And one thing, quite simply, you shouldn't do with generative AI. What's it? Don't just ask for answers. When you ask for answers, you're going to make yourself an idiot. Ask for understanding. Ask it to explain you. Prompt the AI to act as a tutor. And say, for example, if you are poor in, let me say, you have to do a 3-minute thesis speech rather next week, right? And you don't know what to pitch, where to pitch, and you know what simple script should you use, right? First, you can go to generative AI and ask, setting the context that I'm going to do this next week and my research is on this and that and those. And I want you to guide me, understand what is 3MT, 3-minute thesis. Act as my tutor and help me navigate through the 3MT genre. So what happens? The language model is going to be your instructor, but still it is going to do a bit of a what you call interactive role with you, little by little, improving from one step to another, giving you knowledge rather than it performing simple output. So make sure that generative AI is a universal mentor and explainer. Use that capacity it has to get your puzzles resolved, to get your questions resolved, right? Look at this example. Explain quantum entanglement to me. Like I'm an undergraduate engineering student. So what you're telling generative AI is to explain you quantum entanglement, and you invite it to behave like a tutor to an undergraduate engineering student. You see? So you can ask questions, it will provide answers, and you can ask for clarifications. So never miss this chance of the universal mentorship held by generative AI. Now, the idea of simulator machine. Simulating scenarios. AI can simulate interview scenarios, conferences, Q&As, or peer review feedback. It allows you to practice low stakes interactions before the real event. Now remember, you're going to do a paper presentation, right? So you can actually invite your AI to simulate your scenario, right? You simply feed your paper summary and ask that you're going to present it. And after presenting, the panelists are going to question you. So what sort of questions they might raise? So you can ask it, right? When you practice with those things, remember, the actual situation is going to be much more easier, because in actual situation, you won't get such difficult questions. And whatever the questions that you get are actually prompted and tried earlier with generative AI model. So those are the potentials that you can actually really exploit on, right? I'm sure that you have been so far doing simply getting answers from generative AI, but now getting not answers, but the process, very carefully defined process plans for you to learn and evolve from what you know right now to a better understanding of the topic, subject, and the area you like. And remember, this generative AI actually it can draft more than one output. Say, for example, you are asking for an abstract for your data, and you set the whole thing and ask for an abstract. If you are going to post the first abstract it generated for you, you're going to be a fool. You know why? You can actually have unlimited number of versions of the same abstract, each time fine-tuning it, making it much more appealing and relevant each time, so that you can ask for several drafts from which you can choose a better one. So don't underestimate the spectrum of possibilities generative AI has got. These are the ways that you can actually exploit generative AI. Can you remember the very word? Exploit it, outsmart it, and make the best use of it, not just simply getting it to do something on behalf of you, but let it be the one who exploits on behalf of you to make your product and process really, really authentic, legitimate, unique, and very specific. So those are ways that you can actually make your deal with generative AI more meaningful. My jaw is actually painful. Can you guys ask a question or rather give me a compliment on the things that we've been doing so far, we've been discussing so far, so that I can refresh myself to, bring you to the next slide. Friends, any questions or any compliments or anything that you want to share with me? I've been speaking 2 hours at a stretch. Thank you, Dharani, for your comment. Compliment, actually. Friends, are you wasting your morning hours early in this morning? Listening to horrible nonsense spoken by a random language scientist? Just give me a bit of a comment on whether we are doing it right, or rather, am I wasting your time? Whether I'm sure. Metsiri, a wonderful question, yes. What about originality? Yes, 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 Metsiri. Originality is actually, plagiarism checkers can flag you as copied from or this. When you come to the end of this particular session, you will realize where the limit and how you can track the originality and all that, right? Quite simply, when you actually manipulate and steer the generative AI to get your work done, your work is going to be much, much more original, because it is tailored to your own agency. It is tailored to unique requirements that you set. Therefore, they are going to be original, because it is very highly unlikely that the very way that you prompted it, if you tried it through many iterations, if you tried it in many attempts, if you tailored it to your very unique requirement, it's going to be really, really original, rather than simply getting a random result it generated. Aslam, yes. These smart ways are actually not to make you a slave, but to make you the master of using generative AI as slave, because it has such a big potential. And what I am enlightening you is how to make use of that big power to make it assists you to get your work done, right? Well, any other questions or other compliments? I'm sorry, once and again, I'm just telling you, I'm not an AI expert. I'm simply an exploiter of AI for the very profession I'm engaged in, which means teaching writing, teaching communication, teaching scientific communication, for which how can I exhaust generative AI is my point of what we call exploitation. Any comments, please? Well, let's move on. Now, this is what we call outcome-based feedback. Now, remember, you can train, as I told you from the very beginning, you can train your AI on a specific rubric to get targeted critics. You know, generative AI simply give you a generic praise. I told you it's capable of persuading you. It's capable of giving you new patterns, but don't let it do what it can do. Just harness it to get what you simply want to do. So look at the criterion, the rubric specification, and AI action. So your point is, you write your paragraph on a particular section of your journal and you feed it and you ask from the generative AI, is the main claim clear here? Right? And this, in your prompt, you say, I'm going to feed you a paragraph of my methodology section. And the purpose of feeding it to you is to understand whether I have written it clearly, adding my claim in a very clear tone. Analyze it and suggest me ways to improve it, highlighting my thesis statement and areas where I can improve. See, if you give your prompt like that and then provide your own writing, are you simply copying anything from generative AI? Or what are you doing? What are you doing is quite simply, you have written it and you are polishing it with the capability held by generative AI, because you develop a sort of a dialogue with it to get the work done for your behalf. Now you see, you are asking whether the main claim is clear, whether it is stated in the thesis statement. Is there a better way of improving it? Is it a wrong question? Is it plagiarism? Are we really violating any academic integrity issues there? Can I get a clear answer for these questions from you? So for example, now in my example situation, I fed generative AI my own paragraph and I asked the generative AI to see whether I have clearly stated my main claim. And secondly, I asked whether I have written thesis statement or if whether my thesis statement is clear enough and is there a way to improve it. My question is, did I violate any rule of academic integrity? Did I simply copied from generative AI and pasted it in my text? Just tell me, what did I do there? I wish my question is clear. Yes, as Aslam admitted, yes, it will check your work. So you are simply getting the generative AI to act as a professional proofreader, reviewer of your own work, providing you with inputs from which you will develop it. So this is what we call exploiting generative AI while retaining your academic integrity stance and tenet, being disciplined while you are developing yourself. You see, which will not actually harm you. It will certainly make you very effective user of both technology and your scientific knowledge and researching skills. Look at the second example. You want to look at a particular evidence, right? And you feed your data or rather sentence or paragraph and ask whether the data is provided. Among data, whether the citation place order is placed correctly. And ask whether there is a way that I can better interpret this data. What am I doing? I am writing my own thesis. I'm getting a 24/7 support AI to help me fine tune it and make it fine, and finest tuned output. So, ladies and gentlemen, the time you are doing your PhD or master or MPhil is not a time where you felt yourself helpless. The entire help is there with you. The only thing is you need to be properly guided yourself to evolve with intelligence and brain while making use of the generative AI to get your work done. Look at the analysis. You post something you did in analysis and you ask the generative AI to do something. What's it? I'm posting here an episode of my analysis, and these are the data based on this analysis. See whether I have properly explained so what within inverted. And you ask the generative AI to critique on the depth of your analysis. So what happens? Your first draft, generative AI sees whether you have stated so what aspect correctly, and it critiques on the depth of analysis. Now, what's going to happen in future? I'm sure your supervisors will have to be much, much smarter. Why? Your supervisor gets a script fine-tuned by you after brainstorming, editing, and fine-tuning your script with generative AI more than a dozen of times, so that you are contributing from your end to improve your own knowledge in one hand. On the other hand, you are training your supervisors to be super smart. So, my dear guys, generative AI is not a curse. It's not something that we should ban. It's something that we should guide you guys to better exploit for securing your agency and authorship while getting the most out of it. So let's move on. Now we are going to do a bit of a practical activity. Get ready. What is the task? We are going to create an expert mentor design. Look, the task. Design a multi-step prompt that instructs the AI to critique a method section without providing the rewrite immediately. Now, you want to improve something on your method section, right? And you're going to use multi-step prompt. Multi-step prompt in the sense, in one attempt, you prompt it to do something, and then you take its output and you prompt it further, improve it. And at a point, you invite the generative AI to critique your method section. And you are not inviting it to rewrite. but you are inviting it to do something step by step and finally critique on what is done. The logic here is you want the AI agent to identify gaps in logic or clarity so you can fix them, maintaining your authorship. Now, take a methods section of any of the research you've done. Maybe you can take, if you haven't done any research, you can take method section of an interesting article you referred, right? And you are inviting the generative AI, you are going to deal with generative AI in not in one step prompt, but couple of steps prompts where you are discussing, negotiating, and getting the critiquing skill of AI to refine your method section, right? And you do a lot of work, and generative AI comments and critiques and suggests ways, and you fine tune it. Now you can spare about 10 minutes on this. First, choose a section in methods and get your generative AI assistance and do it. I want you to keep that what we call prompt saved. It is already saved in your generative AI, no worries. And once you're done with the whole thing, your prompt, your section, and AI's critique, and what you did on top of it, if you can post the whole discourse in the text, then where you're gonna finish this activity. Is the activity clear, my dear friends? If it is clear, we can go for the activity. Now it is 10:13 and you can take time till 10:25. Any questions on the question you are supposed to deal with? If not, just give me thumbs up and go ahead with your work. Friends, is the question clear? Is the task clear? මේ දරුවෝ කවුරුත් මට respond කරන්නේ නැහනේ. I can't call you all දරුවෝ, but I'm sorry. Thank you. Some of you are doing. Thank you, Subhashini, for the thumbs up, Banula and Binura. Ranganu, thanks. Tilina, thanks. Vigashini, thanks. Well, okay, guys, go ahead. Go ahead. I want a couple of things and keep this as a recorded sort of prompt attempt you done with your generative AI, because there will be a time I will be asking you to send it to me, right? And I want you to copy it to chat and show me what you've done. Yes, take time till 10:25 and do it and send me. You have to try not just one prompt, you have to try a couple of prompts, and you have to improve on the original thing that you originally taken to a next level with these steps followed. Okay, I'm gonna be muted and we'll be back by 10:20. Hello, friends. I am back. How is the success of your task? The time given for you is actually gone. How are you doing? I'm sure you are doing great. I want to see them on chat. So that's the last thing. Now, friends, the two chapters on which I'm basing this lecture, they are uploaded to Moodle. You can refer to them. And of course, the synopsis of today's lecture is also uploaded. And once the lecture is done, perhaps within the course of the day, once the recording is also rendered, I'll be uploading that as well to Moodle. So most of my parts are done from my end, and I want you all to do your ends. Dasun, yes. Have you got any question to share here? Do you want the prompt here, or you want to put it to AI and get the response and edit them step by step? Dasun, you are right. I want the prompt, number one, then the response, and what you did in response. I need the whole trajectory. What prompt you gave, and what was the result, and so on. So I want it be done in 3 steps of prompting at least. Is it clear, Dasun? Okay. And everyone make sure that you do it. And when you're doing it, it's going to be recorded and saved on your generative AI. And I want it be copied to a text editor. And I will make a place right after this lesson for you to upload it to Moodle. Right? So everyone has to do it, which is a credential for me to see that you are doing while these things are going on. Thank you. I'm receiving some of the answers. Let me go through some of them. Now I have some prompts which I readily set here. I did not want to show it because you can try it in your second attempt, right? Here are some of the prompts I wrote as guiding prompts. Act as a strict peer reviewer for the particular journal. I'm going to paste my method section. Do not rewrite it. You see the scope is given. Instead, list 3 specific areas where the procedure is ambiguous or lacks projectivity detail. Ask me clarifying questions about these 3 areas. Wait for my answer before suggesting edits. Now you see, here you are starting a very personal mentorship with your generative AI. And with that, what you're going to do is you have your own write-up. You're going to deal with the generative AI to sharpen it and clear any doubts and clear ambiguities, and you're going to fine tune it. I think this approach is going to work as part of a very lifelong practice for you as a researcher in the future as well. Now, once these secrets are revealed, you know that it's not difficult for you to sustain them in your everyday researching life and make yourself a better writer. And you'll see that you are improving because immediately after your question, you get the response. And for any query you have, without limit in response rate, you get responses and you are moving on. And this is how you can make your research writing a frequent, interactive, fun, and engaging journey. Friends, are you there? And are you with me? Okay, those who have done can send your responses on chat, and I'll be creating maybe after half an hour of the lecture, I'll be creating a link where you can upload the submissions therein, right? Perfect. Thank you for those who have sent it. And the others can actually try it with the Moodle activity that I'm going to create. Okay, so let's move on. I accidentally happened to go out of the presentation. Let me reopen it and go ahead. So in the meantime, you can clear your throats and ask if you have got any questions to ask. And we are actually coming to the last section of the lecture with that. Here we are. Yes. We've been trying the prompting strategies, and now we are at the last part, which is about academic integrity. Thanks for those who are sending. Yes, do we need to mark attendance? Well, I think today we'll forget about marking attendance because since it is recorded, I can do a B option, marking of attendance. Being it Saturday, I do not really worry about sparing time to mark attendance. If you need, we can do it towards the end, don't worry, right? Okay. So we'll move to the last part of the discussion today, which is about academic integrity. I think this is the place where you are going to solve most of the doubts that you had regarding citation, plagiarism, acknowledgement, and all that, right? Let's move on and see. Now, before you begin to write your write-up to any journal, any conference, any institute to submit your thesis, first check their policy. That's the first advice. You can check through instructor or journal policies before using AI. Now, before you use AI, you have to look at the journal policy on AI, right? Don't ever assume that every journal acknowledges or rather accepts the use of AI. The best thing is, if you are trying something to be published in a particular journal, it's your duty to read the publishing guidelines first. In the publishing guidelines, see how they expect you to behave with generative AI, right? And if you simply assume that, this journal might be thinking in this way, and there is no general assumption for any of these. You have to clearly refer to journal instructions, policies, before you are using AI. So that's the first advice. Refer to general guidelines given in. Wow, Rangana, you did a great job. You simply provided the ALM with the direct URL of the particular article, identify any unclear parts, missing information, gaps in logic, or steps that might be hard for another researcher to produce. Identify the significant limitations. Perfect. So this is how you can constructively make use of generative AI to develop, outsmart generative AI's capacity, and to ensure that you create your author, researcher, publisher identity while using generative AI. So once you read the journal instructions, then you can clear all your doubts regarding AI policy, generative AI policy, and all that in that particular journal. Then reflect and ask from yourself, are you outsourcing your thinking or are you using a tool to practice skills? This is not something that you are expected to do, acknowledge elsewhere, but every time, whenever you are using generative AI, ask from yourself, am I outsourcing or am I thinking, synthesizing, and getting the help from generative AI to practice my own skills? If you are going to be reflective on this very thing, I'm sure that you are not going to be a prey of generative AI trap, right? So every time Use it as a tool to practice your own skills, skill areas where you want to improve further, skill areas there where you want to learn new, and skill areas where you want to fine tune and outsmart in terms of your competitive researchers. So to use or not to use is a decision of you. Number one, if the particular journal policy permits you using it, there is no point in not using it. But every time you are using it, reflect whether you simply outsource your ability to generative AI and getting their work copied as your own or violating academic integrity, or else whether you are using it to practice your own skills and you are synthesizing something great with the help of generative AI. So how you can acknowledge the AI use. Now, this is separate from a citation, right? Now, there are, spaces, or rather there is a space in every research article where you can acknowledge people, acknowledge agents, acknowledge the support received by the others, right? And if you really reflect on what support you took from generative AI or artificial intelligence, you can actually include it as an acknowledgement in your journal article, right? So when you write your acknowledgement, make sure that you ponder on these three aspects. See what particular generative AI and technology that you use there. State it clearly, right? And you might brief specific prompts that you use. Say, for example, prompts for editing, prompts for what we call ensuring cohesion, and so on. And how the output was integrated in the final work. So you have to give a reflective note, perhaps 1 or 2 sentences, or probably 3 long sentences, including these particular things in your reflection. So giving such a reflection as an acknowledgement with altruist heart is actually the best practice that you can incorporate in any submission. And how can you cite AI? Imagine that you took actually one from AI. Some journals actually welcome generative AI support with in-text and reference list citations. Now, reference list, that usually comes at the end, there where you can actually provide the reference. The author there is the author of the generative AI, then the year in which you used it, and tool's name and version, and the language model version and its URL. So when you provide all those things, it is a clear indication that you used it. This is the APA style, but IEEE style could be different. You can search this style guides from internet, where you can actually find your style and appropriate accordingly. And in-text citation, whenever you are going on writing, within brackets, within the running on sentences, you include in-text citation. There also you can cite it, author, comma, date, not the date, actually publication year, as in-text citation, so that whenever you any paraphrased or quoted from AI text, you can cite it, so that you give the due credit to the particular APA style. So that's why I say you should not interpret AI's writing as your own. When AI wrote for you, you acknowledge it in the acknowledge section on what grounds you took the support of the AI. Here in text and in reference, you acknowledge from where you did it and how you did it. That's it. So that's how you can ensure academic integrity while using generative AI. Now remember, most of the even highly cited, highly recognized journals are making their windows open for AI use, because they know that Without it, there is no progress as at now. But I'm predicting that the support from generative AI to do research will be banned at a point if they are going to simply let the generative AI do it and provide it here, because it's going to be simply hallucinated, useless articles. But if you're going to do the way that we proposed and that we discussed today, I'm sure that they are going to end up as very well organized instances of exploiting generative AI's potential to get your actual research enriched, nurtured, supported by generative AI. So the last remark, using an LLM is like sailing with a powerful but unpredictable wind. The wind is unpredictable, but LLM is like using it is like, sailing with a powerful wind, but really, really unpredictable. If you understand the mechanics, how NLP works, and trim your sails, how you can make use of the prompting to fine tune and exploit and harness the generative AI's potential for your work, your research will be leading to the right destination. If you let go of the rudder, if you simply forget your critical thinking power and simply outsourcing it to generative AI, remember that you will be simply fallen in the waters and you will be sunk there. So that is my advice as the last but not least, the most important advice for the day. So it's time for us to questions. Let's discuss the future of AI in STEM, where AI will take in STEM. Friends, now it's time for you to speak. Please speak. I have been speaking for nearly 3 hours and I'm inviting in this last moment to speak from your end. Did you learn something or did you get something new as supporting advice for your research writing journey? Or did I kill your time and energy and everything, wasting your time? Or rather, we can discuss where AI and STEM be in the future couple of years yet to come. I want you friends.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Today we learned the salient features of academic integrity for AI and LLM all are very useful for our academic research. Thank you that earlier that we learned something about the AI policies and other things also. However, today your lecture we learned the many aspects the concerning AI and our academic integrity and how to use LLM and other all the things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahesh, my good friend.
Thank you.
I would love to hear from the ladies there. Ladies are very, spontaneous minds. How do you all feel? Thank you, Binura. You have made a response, yes. How to use LLMs responsibly? Yes, responsible use is always, that is appreciated all the time. So none of the ladies do like to speak. Does it mean that? My sentence is wrong. None of the ladies do like speak is a wrong sentence. It should be none of the ladies dislike to speak. Is it the idea?
Actually, sir, we always use these things, but we don't know how to write a prompt or those things. So that is really eye-opening things. So we are not from the IT field, we don't know, but still we have to learn how we can write to ChatGPT, that kind of tools, and how we can get the output is very different. That's we learned today. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for your words. And Dharani, you have made a comment. Yes, your comment is, I think, really authentic because you are from CSC, so you know most of the breadth and depth of AI. But still, if I could make any impact on how to use it ethically, I think I happen to do something worth in this morning, something worthwhile. And I should acknowledge that the material and content for all this is developed and always synthesized by my fellow Ashwini Karunaratne, and she's not turning up this time to teach you because she thinks that her support is coming from back end, giving content and the rest of the support, whereas I am delivering it. I think it's all right, and I should acknowledge that she is doing it in the backdrop. Thank you very much, everyone. So with that, we can wind up today's session here on time with a promise that I'll be uploading, I'll be setting up. Yes, Kusal add something. Let me read it out for you. My opinion is about AI is the university should open the platform to play with the AI because as English is not a native language. Yeah, true. We should use AI ethically, but there should be a benchmark to detect AI percentage who use AI wisely. Thank you, sir. Okay, you're welcome. I think now guiltlessly you can use generative AI with such an ethical way, maintaining your identity, respecting academic integrity. Now you know how to use it. And refer to the two chapters that I have to upload. They give much more detailed information than what I did. Read them as time permits and wait for the submission link by about lunch. I'll be setting it up. Thank you very much, everyone. And today's attendance marking, I'll be creating the attendance marking link also. Let me give you here the password on chat. You can copy it down, and when it is open after the lecture, you can mark attendance. I'll open the attendance marking at 11. Use this password and mark your attendance. Today's password will be it is sent. Copy it down and good luck, everyone. Looking forward to see you next Thursday. It's going to be a holiday, but still I think we'll be able to see if there is any update. I'll be posting it. Okay, good luck with you all. Nice seeing you here. Nice having you all here. And I'm very much thankful for keeping your eyes, ears, and attention with me. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.